15 minutes, 20 minutes worth of work, 3 dishes. What's called sofrito, which is 50% onions and 25% peppers and 25% celery, sweating them in some water. You can use wine or whatever kind of liquid you want, but we're just going to do water. And you do that before you put the tomato in so you don't burn the tomato. And I've got a little bit bigger pot over here than most people have at home, but I'm afraid that I'm handicapped and I'm going to go outside of a larger batch anyway. So that's a handicap professional chefs have. We tend to make bigger batches of stuff. I actually use this board as a measuring instrument when I'm making batches of soup, because I use the same size pot every time and I know exactly what size mountain of vegetables is going to be perfect for that pot, given what kind of soup I'm making. Celery we get actually comes pretty darn clean, so I tend to just do an end-to-end cut on that. One of my trademarks is to have a fair amount of vegetables in everything that I do, and fairly large pieces. And one of the things I do as a professional chef is layer everything. So I've got a bunch of different types of peppers here. This is called a Holland pepper. It's really, really sweet. And these are both local peppers that have what's called the terroir of Smith Center in it, and they're excellent, but a totally different flavor from this. And this is a domestic green pepper from God knows where. So I've got 3 different styles of flavor profiles that really adds to the complexity of whatever you're making. Okay, so you can see roughly 50%, 25%, 25%. That's the ratio for what's called sofrito. Sofrito comes from the Spanish tradition of cuisine and was adopted by South America and the West Indies as the Creole. Is the amount of oil I'm putting in this batch, which is a pretty big batch, basically nothing. And I'm not sauteing here, I'm sweating. So I don't want any color. I want to hear some sound, but that's not a big saute sound. That's not what we want. We're going to sweat. On the recipe, it states thyme, garlic, and black pepper. Just using a little bit of thyme. A little bit of black pepper. A little bit of garlic. And we grind our garlic in large quantities and store it in this, which is something you can do at your home as well. Just not as big a volume. We cook every day, but if you're probably at home, you're going to cook 1 day a week, you can do something that is maybe 25% of this, because you're going to should be using a lot of garlic. So another thing I'm known for is using a lot of garlic, a lot of onions, things that thin your blood. Okay, before it starts to turn brown, and it's starting to. You can see a little bit on the bottom of the pan here. I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is reach to our pot of boiling water here, which we always have going, to cut down the time that it takes. I'm going to do what's called deglaze this with some water. And this water is going, for the most part, to boil away and leave us with some cooked vegetables or sweated vegetables. And the reason I'm doing this again is so that the product doesn't burn, the product I'm making, the soup doesn't burn once I put the tomato in. If I put the tomato in and then try to cook the vegetables, I run the risk of burning. Now that we got some liquid in here, before I add the tomato, I'm going to season it with a ham base from Better Than Bouillon and a chicken base from Better Than Bouillon. All right. So the benefit, as the recipe says, of using a Better Than Bouillon ham base is that it has far less sodium than a whack load of bacon and far less fat, saturated fat, than using bacon. And pretty much everything that Midwesterners love to eat starts out with some bacon or some smoked pork product. And this gets the bacon umami into the food without the associated fat, saturated fat, sodium. Again, I'm not going to use one of these. I'm going to use a couple because chefs layer flavor profiles. I don't want just ham or just chicken. I want both. Okay, and this is already evaporating somewhat, so I'm going to spank it with some more pipe stock here. It's tricky to get one lid down without having them all fall on your head. So I'm going to cover this. As you can see, there's steam coming off. It's just going to speed the process up a little bit. Okay, tomatoes. We've got a variety of tomatoes over here, and these are all available down at Jean's. This is one they didn't have the other day. It's an Italian-style stewed tomato, Mexican-style stewed tomato, regular stewed tomatoes, and I don't know if you can catch on the camera that it's 250 milligrams of sodium for half a cup, which is far less than other, if you look at other stewed tomatoes that they have there, they're 800 for the same portion size. And if you go into a sauce, it's way more than that. So these, I'm not going to call these low sodium, but they're lower sodium. This is also available at Jean's, and it's similar to what we use here. And that's, again, 250 milligrams per half cup serving. So these are lower sodium. I wouldn't call it low sodium by any stretch of the imagination, but it's lower sodium. We're going to use these, which is what I would suggest. Even for a home recipe, get a number 10 can. There's no sense making a small batch, doing all this work, and not have something to put in the freezer. I'm going to dump this out into what's called a 2-inch hotel pan and do exactly what I do here at the Hometown Cafe. I'm going to pull some down and give these a quick chop. These are not going to be in the pan long enough for a piece like that to break apart. I would rather have smaller pieces in the soup than bigger pieces. Once this goes in, the soup is pretty much just going to come up to a simmer and be done. This is designed to be a really fast recipe, something you can do it at the house without a whole lot of experience, and something that you can also turn into other things. So this very soup is a great sauce that you can take some grilled chicken to and put it as a sauce over the grilled chicken with brown rice or potatoes. You can do it with any kind of meat. It makes a great sauce. You can also add other things to it. I use this very soup as the basis. I'm going to do it this Tuesday, in fact, as the basis for tomato soup with tortellini. I also use this as the base for the creamy tomato and Parmesan soup. Okay. While I got this here, I'm going to talk about knives for a second. So, higher quality knife, great to have around. I would never do what I just did with this knife, which is nigh on to $100. This one's maybe $150. This is about $5 to $10. I would suggest you have an expensive knife around because they're fun to have. They hold an edge longer, and have some cheaper knives that you don't mind doing things like that with. Have them both. Okay, that's going to go into the soup, and we may be using a few of these and maybe this as well. Let's see what we got going on. So at your home, I'd encourage you to have some teaspoons around. I usually have, 20 or 30 teaspoons by the range, metal teaspoons. Here we use plastic ones. You can do that as well. At your home, you don't have to be worried about single use, but we do here. Okay. So once these are cooked, the tomatoes can go in. Now, since I'm doing a smaller batch, I'm not really sure how many tomatoes I need. I've never tasted these. I think I want to try these. And I want to try these. I opened one of these Italian style and they're really strong with oregano. And that's not what I want. So I'm going to hope that these are a little bit lighter with the spices. That's good. Nice and sweet. Okay. So the vegetables are nice and cooked. And now we're just going to get the tomatoes. This needs a little bit more, thank you. A little bit more tomato flavor and a little bit more liquid. So I'm going to add at least 1 can of this. Water. Okay, and as you can see here, there's plenty of vegetables still in here. We have a nice red color. Oh yeah, that helped it. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more ham flavor. So what I'm doing now is we're almost near the completion of the soup. We're going to thicken it, add some seasoning, add some sugar. But I'm doing what's called correcting the seasoning now. So I want a little bit more ham and a little bit more chicken, just a little. Anytime I use tomato products, I use what, Renee? Anytime I use tomato products, I use what? Agave. I use agave, any kind of sugar to cut the acidity of the tomato. Just a little bit. Agave is a syrup made from the same cactus that we make tequila from, so it can't be all bad. The 2 herbs that go in here are herb de Provence, which is heavy in lavender, and it comes from Provence, France, where they would make a tomato soup just like this. They might tend to use fresh tomatoes, which I think stewed tomatoes make a better soup. So that's 1 The other thing that's going in is sweet basil, leaves, not ground. Just a little bit of that. And that's going to add what everyone recognizes as one of the main ingredients in my tomato soup. Okay. That is it. Now we're going to thicken. We're going to thicken that soup. I'll put this lid on so it goes a little bit quicker. Okay, little tip. Cornstarch bags are not made to cut because they don't cut. The worst thing that a cornstarch manufacturer could have is an exploded box. So use scissors. I don't like to have extra cornstarch lying around, and we use a lot of cornstarch, so we make it by the box. I make the entire batch. Any recipe that has an amount of cornstarch means you got to stop what you're doing, measure out the cornstarch, and there's no guarantee that the measurement is going to be correct anyway. So chances are you're going to need a little bit more, a little bit less. So we like to have this slurry on hand in large amounts. At the end of the day, we leave it out on the counter. That container right there is full of cornstarch slurry. And then at the end of the day, we put it in the fridge and get it out for tomorrow. Sometimes we use 2 or 3 of these in a day. You can do the same thing, maybe not on this volume, but on your cooking day, you could make a smaller batch and have it to use throughout your cooking day. So I make what's called a cornstarch slurry. And this is a little bit thinner than we usually do. I like to have it not break. Those drips are called breaks. Okay. So I'm not going to use a whisk because there's no need. You can see this is at a rolling boil, and that's what you need. As soon as you put cornstarch into a liquid that's boiling, it's done thickening immediately. If you put it in below a boiling boil, you need to bring it up to a boil, and then you don't know how much you've just gotten thickened. So right now, the benefit of having it boiling is that I'm going to be able to take a look at exactly how much this is thickening. And I am going to get my uniform red right now. Okay, so if you can see the consistency of the soup, I'm done with the soup at this consistency. But if I wanted to thicken it up a little bit more, I had some leftover taken out of the refrigerator, I could thicken this up a little bit more. It would be just fine to be used as a sauce. And if you can see, I'll put some of this on a plate. No, I was going to do a chicken breast. So as you can see, just by thickening this up a little bit more, it would be completely appropriate as a sauce on a chicken breast with some rice or pasta. You can even put a mound of pasta, chicken breast, and use this as a sauce. So what you want to do if you're cooking for lifestyle modification is to get a few uses out of just making one thing. And this is an example of a thing that will give you three or four or five different uses. Okay, I got some good stuff here. So we're gonna do, that's not a good idea. All ideas are not good. But I've got some penne here, which we'll toss in a saute pan with some grilled chicken pieces and some black olives. And I might even have some sweet basil over there. And that's the kind of thing that you can do in your house just with leftovers, right? It's exactly what I did. I got leftovers and I got this great soup, but we're going to use it as a sauce and do an Italian style tossed pasta. This is a batch of rice pilaf. It's bigger than what you would have in your house, but it's cooled down properly. And the type of thing that I'm going to suggest that you make once a week and have this on hand. I might put some beans in here so it's a better protein source. But nonetheless, this is something you could have. And then you don't have to start it from scratch. What I suggest you do is microwave it. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Okay, a little bit of water in some kind of container with a tight-fitting lid. I'm going to come over and get some water out of the water, a pot of boiling water we always have, just a little bit. And then I'm going to go right to the microwave. And this you can do right at your house, just like I'm doing. We're also going to, thank you, Renee, reconstitute frozen chicken breast, and I'm going to go right to water. On cooking day, having some boiling water around is a really nice time saver. I'm going to put a little bit of water on there. I'm going to cover it with a plate so the steam stays in and cooks this. Here in the commercial kitchen, we're pretty careful with reheating things. So chicken, anything that's reheated comes up to 165 degrees. So I've got my trusty thermometer, digital thermometer. And I'm going to see what we got going on here. You want to make it deep enough to where I've got a warmer right here. Now you're not going to have a fancy warmer at your house, but that's going to push it up even further and keep it at that temperature, probably higher. Okay, this is my chicken breast. Thicken up this sauce to the consistency, the soup to a consistency of a sauce. So now we have a soup right here. And this is exactly why you want to make more cornstarch slurry than you need. I'm showing you right now exactly why it's handy to have around. It could very well be that I came down, we just got a new room 1, and could have said to Renee, brown rice, grilled chicken breast, take that soup I just made, thicken it up to a sauce. That could very well happen. Is that not correct, Renee?
Yes, Chef.
She never says that. Well, that was a little bit too much. So that's not a big deal. So I'm going to take some of the liquid off the top here and thin out what I just did because I just got too much. And I'm going to take a little bit more water. The best thing you could watch a chef do is repair things that he didn't want to come out like that. And that's just what I did. While I was talking, I put in way too much cornstarch. I thinned it out with some more of the liquid here and some of the water there. Now I've got a nice consistency, sauce consistency product. Okay, the other thing we're going to do here, and we'll do them both at the same time, is penne pasta with some of the soup, some chicken, and some black olives. And this, again, is something you can do at your home. Boiling water. You know, it's not quite boiling, is it? Almost. This is going to evaporate, so I'm going to put a little bit of water in there. Okay. Let's take some of the soup. Let's put it back on the fire. Let's put a little chicken in there. Let's put a few black olives in there. That's our second dish coming up there. So these are our two variations. A little bit of brown rice. And I'm going to go right over here and grab our sauce. One thing that chefs do is go underneath with sauce. It's kind of an illusion thing. I'm going to go right on top of there with that. Even though this is a little bit thick. You could put some green beans or something like that on it. That's one variation. And I'm going to go right for the penne. And this is going to be another variation out of the same thing. This is penne, leftover, grilled chicken bits, leftover, came from the salad bar. And now you've got something totally different made out of that soup that was thickened up a little bit. And then, of course, you have a soup. All right, 1, 2, 3. Let's see what we got here. Marvelous. 15 minutes, 20 minutes worth of work, 3 dishes. Bon appetit.